This is Oscar winner actor Gregory Peck. Peck has been called the greatest movie hero of the 20th century. Liza Minnelli said that Gregory Peck was the ultimate movie star. She said he represented all we know to be reliable, strong, and solid. In 1962, this was shown in his portrayal of Atticus Finch in the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, of which he won the Oscar for Best Actor.
Miss Jean Louise, stand up. Your father's passing.
Peck said To Kill a Mockingbird was his favorite and best film that he'd ever made. The film was set in a small Alabama town. It chronicles the childhood of Scout and Jim Finch as their father Atticus defends a black man falsely accused of rape. The movie was to be filmed in Harper Lee's, the author's, hometown of Mooresville, Alabama. However, the town had changed so much since the 1930s, when the story was supposed to have taken place, they decided instead to construct the town on the back lot of Universal Studios. 10-year-old Mary Bayham played Scout, the tomboy's daughter of Atticus Finch, the town's lawyer. This is Mary with Peck and Philip Alford, who played Jim. They'll remain close the rest of Peck's life. Even after she was grown, Mary always called Peck Atticus, and he always called her Scout. Here's the three in 1997 when Peck was presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Mary Bayham said that her mother heard that a movie crew was coming to Birmingham. She wanted to bring Mary to the audition, but Mary's dad, a retired Air Force general, was against it, until her mother convinced him by saying, "What's the chances of her winning anyway?" When the studio made the decision to film in California instead of Alabama, Mary's mother was unable to stay with her daughter in California full time. So Scout would go home with Peck's family every weekend. He said he didn't want her to lose the feeling of family. Do you recognize this young actor who played Bo Radley, the Finch's simple-minded next-door neighbor? It's Robert Duvall, who will later play Augustus Gus McCrae in the epic TV western Lonesome Dove. Scout's older brother Jim was played by Philip Alford. Philip had appeared in 3 productions with Birmingham's Town and Cowan Civic Theater. The director of the theater phoned Philip's mother in Gadsden to see if Philip would be interested in auditioning for the part of Jim in a movie that was to be filmed in Alabama called To Kill a Mockingbird. He had no interest until he learned that he could skip school to audition. Philip became one of 3 finalists and was called to New York for a screen test. He won the role of Jim. During filming, his parents drove to Hollywood to be with him. His sister became a stand-in for Mary Bayham that played Scout. After To Kill a Mockingbird, Alfred would become Boy Anderson, the youngest son of Charles Anderson, played by Jimmy Stewart in Shenandoah, a 1965 Western set during the Civil War where the Anderson family tries unsuccessfully to remain neutral. In his early 20s, Alfred quit the film business and followed his dad into construction. It's believed that he had a business in Grenada, Mississippi, where he keeps a low profile. Brock Peters played Tom Robinson, the black man accused of rape. Peters will receive the Emmy Award for his portrayal of Robinson.
Tom, did you rape Mayella Ewell? I did not, sir. you harm her in any way?
I did not.
The two actors, Brock Peters and Gregory Peck, became lifelong friends while filming this movie. Years later, Brock Peters will give the eulogy at Gregory Peck's funeral. James Anderson, who was already an experienced actor, played the bad guy, Bob Ewell, whose wife was supposed to have been raped, and he wanted a black man executed, guilty or not. Anderson was a convincing actor. He was best known for To Kill a Mockingbird. James Anderson passed away on September the 14th, 1969, at the age of 48 from a heart attack. His last movie was Ballad of Cable Hogue, 1969, and Hunt the Man Down, released in 1970 posthumously. Eldridge Gregory Peck was born the 5th of April 1916 in La Jolla, California. His parents were Gregory Pearl Peck, the town's only dentist, and Bernice Ayers Peck. She was called Bunny. When Gregory was 3 years old, his parents separated, but they won't divorce until years later. Bunny took Gregory back to St. Louis and moved in with her mother, who run a seedy boarding house. Peck once said in an interview that he remembered selling papers standing on the corner at age 6. He wanted a paper route to make more money. They told him when he got where he could throw a paper on the second-story balcony, they'd give him a job. He kept practicing until he got the route. And then his mother grabbed him up, took him back to Los Angeles, he said, where they moved in with her brother and family. But that didn't work out, and she didn't like the job that she had waiting on tables. So she left Gregory with his paternal grandparents in La Jolla, and she moved to Los Angeles to work as a receptionist. She eventually got married again and stayed in L.A. Peck said these few years with his grandmother was the best in his life. She would take him to the movies, and when he was 9, he remembered seeing Phantom of the Opera, being so scared he had to come home that night and sleep with his grandmother. One of his fondest memories was playing with his dog Bud, and he rode his bicycle that his dad had bought him all over town, and he knew almost everyone. When Gregory was 10, he was sent to St. John's Catholic Military School in Los Angeles. He then attended San Diego High School while living with his father. After high school, he entered the San Diego State College. He soon tired of college and quit to drive a truck for a gas company. After a few months, he decided he wanted to go back to college and entered the University of California at Berkeley. He became interested in acting while there, and after graduation, Peck headed for New York. He ended up studying at the neighborhood playhouse. He worked at several jobs trying to stay alive, hoping for a career on the stage. Peck made his debut as Cliff in Morning Star. Critics didn't like the production, but they liked Peck's performance. In 1941, Peck won a part in The Doctor's Dilemma, where he played a secretary. The noted actress Catherine Cornell was the leading lady. During this time, Gregory Peck met Greta Kekonian Rice, who was serving as Catherine Cornell's hairdresser and makeup artist. The two married on 4 October 1942. She had been married once before to a man named Charles Rice, a businessman. World War II was in process. Even Hollywood actors were being drafted or volunteering. Peck was classified 4F when they found ruptured disc in his back. With a shortage of Hollywood actors, he was advised to try Hollywood. On July the 20th, 1944, Gregory and Greta will have their first child, a son they named Jonathan. The same year Jonathan was born, Peck appeared in his debut film, Days of Glory. He played a Russian guerrilla fighter. Now remember, this was during World War II, and Russia was a member of the Allies. Although Days of Glory were a somewhat disappointment for Peck, the next one, Keys of the Kingdom, will bring him his first Oscar nomination. Peck's performance as an idealistic missionary priest will raise his status as an actor.
Again. Oh, it's no trouble at all. Just a simple matter of changing a dressing.
Even that will no longer be required. Thank you. Good day.
Good day, Mr. Trout. Dear Lord, let me have patience and forbearance where now I have anger. Give me humility, Lord. After all, it was only thy merciful goodness and thy divine providence that saved the boy. But they are ungrateful, and you know it.
The next year, 1945, Peck will be in an Alfred Hitchcock film, Spellbound, where he plays an amnesia victim who is accused of murder, along with the help of Ingrid Bergman's character trying to prove his innocence. During filming, rumors spread that Peck and Bergman was having an affair. It wasn't until 1987 when a People's Magazine reporter asked him about ladies that he had worked with, including Ava Gardner, Lauren Bacall, Sophia Loren, Greer Garson, and others. He spoke well of them all. But when it came to Ingrid Bergman, he said she was like a lovely Swedish rose. And they were both young stars who were involved for weeks in close and intimate work. He confided that he had real love for her. However, Peck was not like most male stars at that time, who had affairs with every leading lady. He preferred staying at home with little interest in social events. He had rather invite a few friends over for dinner. He enjoyed just staying home and reading books. He became interested in Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. He eventually owned thousands of books on the subject. In 1946, Peck will star in The Yearling, along with Jane Wyman and Claude Jarman Jr., written by Marjorie Rollins and based on a true story told to her. After the Civil War, a family tries to make a living on a Florida farm when Jody, played by Jarman, finds a young fawn and persuades his parents to let him raise the little deer that had lost its mother. Unfortunately, the deer grows up, eats the garden that the family needs for food. Peck will be nominated for the Oscar for his part as the understanding father. He also received the Golden Globe Award. And also in 1946, Peck played in a Western as the likable bad boy in Duel in the Sun, along with Joseph Cotton, who is the good brother to Gregory Peck's character, and Jennifer Jones, the fiery half-breed that wants to be a good girl but succumbs to Peck's character despite his crude ways, while at the same time ignoring Joseph Cotton's character who loves her. Cotton said he thought Peck liked playing the bad guy for a change. Duel in the Sun was filmed at Wildwood Regional Park at Thousand Oaks, California. The scene where Pearl, Jennifer Jones, dances was changed because it couldn't pass the censors. This is one of the few times that Gregory Peck stepped out of his normal role as an honorable, upstanding character. The same year, Gregory Peck and his wife Greta will have a second child, Stephen Joseph Peck, on August the 16th, 1946. Stephen will grow up to become a documentary film director, writer, and founder of Far From Home Foundation. He served in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. Although his father was against the war, at the same time he was very proud of Stephen's military service. The next year, 1947, Gregory Peck will star in a political film Gentleman's Agreement. Peck played the magazine reporter that disguises himself as Jewish to pen a series of articles on anti-Semitism.
I'm just going to let everybody know that I'm Jewish, that's all.
Jewish? But you're not, are you? Not that it would make any difference to me, but you said, I'm going to let everybody know as if you hadn't before and would now. So I just wondered.
Along with Peck, it starred Dorothy McGuire and John Garfield. Peck will receive his second Oscar nomination for Gentleman's Agreement. Also in 1947, the Pecks moved in this house at Pacific Palisades. In 1948, Peck will play the leaders of an outlaw gang in Yellow Sky, consisting of Richard Widmark, John Russell, and Harry Morgan. Running from the law while crossing the desert looking for water, they come across the deserted ghost town where everyone had left except a girl and her grandpa. Ann Baxter played Mike, the pistol-toting tomboy. When the gang discovered that Mike and her grandpa had gold hid, they was determined to take it. However, Stretch, their leader, Gregory Peck, decided to help the girl and her grandpa against his own gang. I like the scene where the gang has Mike, her grandpa, and Gregory Peck's character surrounded in the house.
What happened?
Oh, me and the boys had a little argument.
About our deal? Couldn't see it your way, eh? Huh. What'll they do next?
That's hard to say with me not there to tell them.
The next year, in 1949, Peck will receive his third Oscar nomination for 12 O'Clock High, about an aircrew in the 8th Air Force bomber unit during World War II, flying daylight bombing missions. Also in 1949, Gregory and Greta will have their third son, Carrie Paul Peck, on June the 17th, 1949. This is Gregory with his three sons a few years later, Jonathan, Stephen, and Carrie. In 1950, 1 year after Carrie was born, Peck will star in The Gunfighter, where Jimmy Ringo, played by Peck, returns to his hometown to see his wife and little boy. He had been gone for several years and developed a reputation as a gunfighter. He was now getting older and wanted to settle down with his family, but his reputation prevented it.
Kind of strong talk, ain't it, Mr. Ringo?
You're Hunt Bromley, ain't you?
Yeah. You heard of me already?
Yeah, I heard about you. I heard you're a cheap, no-good barroom loafer. If I didn't have something else in my mind, I'd take them guns away from you and slap you cross-eyed.
You're asking for trouble, Mr. Ringo.
But you already got it, partner. Because I got a gun on you under this table. And it's pointing smack at your belly. Now, you gonna get out of here or not?
Peck said the director, Henry King, wanted it to look authentic. So they dressed him in baggy clothes with a mustache, the way people actually dressed at that time. The head of Fox Studios was in Europe while most of the picture was being shot. But when he returned, he wanted it reshot with Peck wearing better clothes and no mustache. When he asked how much it would cost the studio to reshoot it, they told him twice as much as it actually would have cost. He left it alone the way it was. The script of The Gunfighter was actually written with John Wayne in mind. But Columbia Pictures first bought the script, and Wayne refused to play the part because he didn't like Harry Cohn, head of Columbia. So Columbia ended up selling it to 20th Century Fox.
How's that, Mr. Ringo? You'll have to speak up if you want me to hear you.
Why don't you button up your britches and go home?
How'd you like to try to make me, Mr. Ringo?
Now listen, partner. I come in here minding my own business. Now, how about letting me go out the same way?
I want to know first what you meant by that remark you just passed.
How come I gotta run into a squirt like you nearly every place I go these days? What are you trying to do, show off in front of your friends?
Are you ready to back up that remark or not?
What about this? Ain't some of you fellas in charge of this donkey?
I'm telling you, Mr. Ringo.
Eddie don't mean no real harm, Mr. Ringo.
Then let Eddie keep his big, ugly nose out of my business if he don't want to get it slapped.
Richard Jekyll, who was co-star on The Gunfighter, was later diagnosed in 1969 with cancer, and his wife had Alzheimer's disease. The Jekylls had lost their Brentwood home and was $1 million in debt, leaving them basically homeless. Jekyll's family tried unsuccessfully to get him into the motion picture and television county home and hospital. Once Peck lobbied for Jekyll, he was admitted within 3 days. Jekyll stayed there until his death. In 1951, Peck became Captain Horatio Hornblower, captain of the HMS Lydia, where his loyal crew battles a Spanish warship and a band of Central American rebels. In the process, he manages to save Lady Barbara Wellesley, played by Virginia Mayo, who is betrothed to Rear Admiral Ligington, played by Dennis O'Day. On the return voyage, Captain Hornblower and Lady Wellesley falls in love, complicating things. Also in 51, Peck had become a heavy drinker and was hospitalized from his lifestyle and overwork. He cut down on his drinking, being able to make David and Bathsheba with Susan Hayward. In 1952, Peck traveled to Italy to play Joe Bradley, a reporter who realizes the young woman he'd met, played by Audrey Hepburn, is secretly a real-life princess out on the town in Roman holiday. Hepburn was a newcomer to American audiences, and she didn't know if Peck would accept her or not. She was 24 and he was 37. He said, "Sure, we'll give her a try." After a few weeks filming, he told the director, "I want her name on the billing, equal to mine." He said, "If you don't, you're going to look mighty silly when she wins the Academy Award for this role," which she did. She later publicly thanked Peck for supporting her. Roman Holiday was written by Dalton Trumbo, who was on the Hollywood blacklist at the time. Ian Hunter fronted for Trumbo as the writer and even accepted the award for Best Motion Picture Story. While in Italy working on Roman Holiday, Gregory Peck was interviewed by French journalist Véronique Passoni. It will be a while before they will meet the second time. After almost 13 years of marriage, on December the 29th, 1954, the Pecks filed for divorce, but it'll be December the 29th, 1955, before it'll become final. According to law, they had to wait 1 year. On December the 30th, 1955, one day after his divorce from Greta Cocconi, Gregory Peck will marry for the second and final time. Peck and Véronique Passoni was married by a justice of the peace, as his religion didn't allow him to be married in the church. Greta Cocconi was given custody of the 3 boys and a generous alimony settlement. Greta will become a Los Angeles realtor, and she passed away at home in Beverly Hills in 2008 at the age of 96. Also in 1955, Peck will team up again with Jennifer Jones in The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, about an ex-World War II soldier with wife and kids trying to cope with his deeds in Italy during the war. During a scene where the two argue, Jones scratches Peck's face. He told the director, "I don't call that acting. I call that personal." In 1956, Gregory Peck and Veronique Pisoni will have a son, Anthony Peck, on 24 October 1956. He was called Tony. Tony would become an actor and writer. He said he grew up around famous people, and it was only natural for him to wind up attending acting school. In 1983, Tony met model Cheryl Tiegs, and they began seeing a lot of each other and will soon marry. In time, Tony will develop a drinking problem. It will affect his family. He'll become estranged from his father. His wife, Cheryl Tiegs, will divorce him. The shock of his wife leaving him will cause him to quit drinking. The same year Tony was born, his dad was starring in Captain Ahab and Moby Dick. Moby Dick will take 9 months to film. During filming the climax scene, Peck almost lost his life when the rubber whale that he was strapped to slipped the cable that was holding it. Peck was lost in the fog for 10 minutes before being found swimming after the huge rubber whale sank. On 1 May 1958, Gregory Peck and Veronique Pisoni will have a daughter. They named Cecilia. She'll become an actress and director and producer of documentary films. She is the only daughter of Gregory out of 4 boys. Also in 1958, Gregory Peck will be in 2 excellent films, Bravados, where Jim Douglas, played by Peck, is determined to avenge the rape and death of his wife. He chases down one at a time 4 men accused by his neighbor of committing the crime. After he finds the last man, played by Henry Silva, he learns that he has been chasing and killing the wrong men.
What I have told you is the truth.
Next, it was the big country, where Peck's character, a sea captain, arrived at a sprawling ranch owned by his fiancée, Carol Baker's father, Major Turrell, played by Charles Pickford, is involved in a water dispute with Burl Ives' character, Rufus Hennessy. Gene Peters played the love interest of Peck, and Charlton Heston played the ranch foreman that is in love with Peck's fiancée. Peck said that when they filmed the scene where he and Carol Baker was riding in a carriage and being harassed by Chuck Connor and his men, Peck hated the scene and asked Billy Wilder if he could redo it. Wilder refused, even though Peck was co-producer. One scene was when the cowhands tried to con Peck into riding Old Thunder, a horse that no one could ride. He refused, and they laughed at him for being scared. But when everyone was gone, he goes down and rides the horse without anyone knowing it.
Any advice?
Yes. Don't do it.
Thanks.
When you see Peck riding Old Thunder, that's not Peck. It's Slim Pickens riding his own horse, Dear John. Pickens taught his horse to buck on cue. No one knows how Pickens got the horse to buck. He never let anyone ride Dear John but himself. The horse that Peck was seen riding was Pickens' daughter's horse that looked like Dear John. When Slim asked his daughter if they could use her horse in a film, she first said no, until he said, "They'll pay you." Gregory Peck's sons, Jonathan, Stephen, and Carrie Paul, played as boys, unaccredited, in the film. In 1959, Peck will become Lieutenant Joe Clemens in Pork Chop Hill. The movie is about a real battle that took place during the Korean War. The hill became a political pun used during peace talks. Newspaper reporters that were actually there during the battle commented that the movie was close to reality. In 1961, Gregory Peck will star and one of the biggest box office hits of the year, The Guns of Navarone, a World War II adventure with David Niven and Anthony Quinn. The Allies sent a commando unit to destroy a seemingly impregnable German fortress that hindered Allied shipping in the Aegean Sea. The next year, Peck will lose his dad, Gregory Pearl Peck, on the 25th of August, 1962, at the age of 76. That same year, Gregory Peck will receive the Oscar for his portrayal of Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. Peck will be named the greatest film hero of the last 100 years by the American Film Institute for his portrayal of Atticus Finch. Another movie Peck made in '62 was Cape Fear with Robert Mitchum, playing the ex-prisoner that blames Gregory Peck's character for sending him to prison. Mitchum determined to get revenge by threatening Peck's wife and daughter. The police is unable to help. They can't prove that Mitchum's character is a threat. In 1963, it'll be Captain Newman, M.D., where Peck plays a World War II Army psychiatrist charged with determining whether patients are able to return to the battlefield. It also co-starred Tony Curtis and Angie Dickerson. In 1967 until 1970, Peck will serve as president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. At the request of Sammy Davis Jr., Peck delayed the Oscar presentations until after Dr. Martin Luther King's funeral was over. In 1968, Peck will star with Eva Marie Saint in The Stalking Moon, where U.S. Army soldiers rounds up a group of Apache, mostly women and children. To their surprise, they find a missing white woman and her half-Apache son among the group. In 1974, Peck will produce The Dove, about Robert Lee Graham, a real person who started at the age of 16 to sail around the world by himself. It took 5 years. The next year, on the 26th of June, 1975, Peck and his first wife, Greta, received news that their oldest son, Jonathan Gregory Peck, had committed suicide at his home by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Jonathan was working as a journalist and TV reporter. His father said that his son Jonathan was depressed by being overworked, a failed love affair, and his illness of hardening of the arteries. Jonathan was 30 years old. He left no note. Peck was affected by the death of his son. He couldn't work for a year. In 1976, he played in The Omen with Lee Remick. After The Omen, Peck went back to playing bigger-than-life parts, like MacArthur in 1977. MacArthur presents the life of General Douglas MacArthur, played by Peck, from his defeat in 1942 in the Philippines, then his triumphant return in October 1944. At the end of World War II, he served as consul to Japan, and later commander of American and UN troops in Korea. Then his final confrontation with President Truman. Next, it'll be a huge hit, The Boys from Brazil. Peck starred with Laurence Olivier about Dr. Joseph Mengele, known as the Angel of Death. When he escaped to South America after World War II, he tried to clone Hitler so the Third Reich could continue. In 1979, Gregory Peck was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. In 1982, Peck will play Abraham Lincoln in the TV miniseries The Blue and the Gray, about two families that are kin, one for the North and one for the South. Co-actors are John Geezer, Julia Duffy, and Stacy Keith, among others. In 1989, Peck will star with Jane Fonda and Jimmy Smith in Old Ringo, when Jane Fonda's character goes to Mexico to work as a governess and gets caught up in the Mexican Revolution. She gets involved with General Thomas Arroyo of Pancho Villa's army. She also becomes involved with the old gringo, Gregory Peck's character. Also that year, Peck will receive the Lifetime Achievement Award. The next year, on January the 25th, 1990, actress Ava Gardner passed away, leaving her longtime housekeeper and pet dog without a place to go. Ava had been a longtime friend of Peck's, so he took in her housekeeper and her dog. In 1992, Gregory will lose his 98-year-old mother, Bunny Ayers Peck Maysuch. After divorcing Peck's father in 1921, she had later married Joseph Maysuch on 22 January 1927. In later life, Peck performed in a one-man show, A Conversation with Gregory Peck, where he would answer questions and converse with the audience. In February 2000, at the El Sonora Theater in Salem, Oregon, Peck joked at the age of 83, "This will be the end of my first farewell tour." He said, "I am completely done with film, but I am open to a smashing cameo." Gregory Peck's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is located at 6100 block of Hollywood Boulevard. On June 12, 2003, Eldridge Gregory Peck, age 87, will succumb to bronchial pneumonia, passing away at his Los Angeles home. According to his wife, he passed away in his sleep, peaceably, without pain, while she was holding his hand. The actor is entombed at the Cathedral of Our Lady at the Angels Mausoleum in Los Angeles. His eulogy was performed by his old friend, Brock Peters, whose character Tom Robinson was defended by Peck's character Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird.
I remember when my daddy gave me that gun. He told me that I should never point at anything in the house, and that he'd rather I'd shoot at tin cans in the backyard. But he said that sooner or later he supposed the temptation to go after birds would be too much, and that I could shoot all of the blue jays I wanted, if I could hit them. But to remember, it was a sin to kill a mockingbird.
Why?
Well, I reckon because mockingbirds don't do anything but make music for us to enjoy. Don't need people's gardens. Don't nest in the corn cribs. They don't do one thing but just sing their hearts out for us.